What is Prigozhin's game? Russian invasion of Ukraine. Let's go! If you want to go see week early reactions, extended clips, bonus videos, go over to our Patreon, links in the description box down below.
The first half of May has probably been the most eventful fortnight of the war in Ukraine in 2023. Ukraine is counter-attacking in the Bakhmut section. Prigozhin is threatening the Kremlin with a withdrawal from Bakhmut. Ukraine has finally got its long-range missiles, which is going to make a major difference in the upcoming counter-offensive. After months of costly defensive battles, the Ukrainian army is entering the summer of 2023 in a good position to make some noise on the battlefield. The unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine continues, and so does our coverage.
Let's go.
Thankfully, war isn't as common a thing today as in the past, since back in the day, we'll give it a go. Let's briefly describe the situation on other fronts and sections before diving deeper into Bakhmut, which remains the key battlefield of the first half of 2023. More evidence of Ukrainian presence in the Dnipro Delta has been revealed in this period. It has been reported that the Ukrainian army has liberated the Veliki Potyomkin and Kruglik Islands. Russian artillery has been actively deployed to eliminate the Ukrainian presence in the Dnipro Delta Islands in this period. On the North Luhansk front, both sides have had limited advances. On May 3rd, it was reported that the Ukrainian 81st Airmobile Brigade has gained some ground near Bilohorivka and allegedly encircled some 100 Russian soldiers from an unspecified unit. On May 7th, the 14th Mechanized Brigade made some progress south of Vilshana. On May 14th, the Russians reportedly captured Mashutivka. But the territorial changes on the North Luhansk front in this period did not alter the status quo much. A similar situation is developing in the Avdiivka section. According to Russian sources, the 71st Jaeger Brigade liberated some ground east of Toritska on May 2nd. But the 36th Marine Corps Brigade's attempt to liberate Vodiana was repelled by the DPR forces on May 11th, while a day before that, Kamyanka fell to the Russian army. Both sides have also reported battles in the Volodar, Promina, Spena, and several other battlefield sections, but they did not lead to any significant gains by either side. Now for Bakhmut. For months, Wagner and other elements of the Russian army have been grinding their way through Bakhmut while sustaining heavy losses. According to the US National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, Russia has suffered around 100,000 casualties since January 2022, with half of these losses from Wagner. This has created a curious situation in the Bakhmut section, as the Russians have continued advancing inside the city while losing ground on the flanks to the Ukrainian army. Undoubtedly, heavy losses by Wagner and regular units of the Russian army in Bakhmut throughout the past 6 months have made them vulnerable to counterattacks like this, which Prigozhin has been ringing alarm bells about for weeks. On May 3rd, Prigozhin reported about a 160-meter advance inside Bakhmut, which cost Wagner 103 fighters. Then, in the following couple of days, Prigozhin posted several videos where he openly and heavily criticized the leadership of the Russian army for the shell hunger experienced by Wagner. In one of the videos, Prigozhin posed in front of dozens of dead Wagner fighters and used profane language against Shoigu and Gerasimov. He promised to withdraw his mercenaries from Bakhmut by May 10th if the artillery shortage issue was not solved. This was followed by Prigozhin's letter to Shoigu, stating that Wagner would hand over their positions in Bakhmut to the Akhmat forces of Ramzan Kadyrov. Prigozhin eventually made a U-turn, declaring that Wagner would stay in Bakhmut after all. Still, this whole Prigozhin-Shoigu saga demonstrates the level of distrust among key figures of the Russian military. Either Shoigu is trying to undermine Prigozhin by failing to supply Wagner properly, or Wagner is actually getting the same amount of shells as the rest of the Russian units, which several commanders like Khodorkovsky have claimed, and Prigozhin is doing this to strengthen the perception of the incompetence of Shoigu. Problems such as a lack of coordination between Wagner and other Russian units have caused problems for the Kremlin's aspirations to capture Bakhmut as soon as possible. First, on May 5th, the Ukrainian army liberated some ground in the vicinity of Sekyi-Vantsety. Then on May 9th, the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade conducted a successful counter-attacking operation on the southern flank of the Bakhmut section, reportedly destroying 2 regiments of the 72nd Motor Rifle Brigade in the process. Prigozhin accused the 72nd Motor Rifle Brigade of abandoning positions, which led to the Ukrainian breakthrough, declaring that further advancing in the Bakhmut flanks may lead to the encirclement of Wagner units inside the city. One of the Russian military bloggers claimed the leading cause of this setback was the lack of coordination between the Wagnerites and the 72nd Brigade. Apparently, the Wagner group left this section to take advantage of an advance elsewhere, but did not communicate this to the 72nd Brigade. If true, this once again demonstrates gross negligence in the Russian military leadership. Another explanation is that the first line of Russian troops did not have ordinary portable anti-tank weapons to prevent the Ukrainian breakthrough spearheaded by armored groups, including 2 to 3 tanks in each assault unit. If this is true, then we observe another example of horrible logistics management by the Russian army, since it is very hard to believe that the occupation army does not have portable anti-tank weapons to supply its first-line soldiers.
They should have been deployed.
Further Ukrainian advance was registered on May 11th. On the northern flank of the Bakhmut section, the Ukrainian army advanced near Kromove, pushing the Wagner units away from the TO504 and 00506 highways. This is a significant development, since the Ukrainian army now has 2 supply lines to defenders inside Bakhmut. On May 11th, the Ukrainian army also liberated the Bakhmut Industrial College and some ground between Hryhorivka and Dubovy-Vasilivka. Prigozhin said, "The flanks are falling apart, the front is crumbling, everything is leading to a global tragedy for Russia." He once again accused the units of the Russian army of abandoning the flanks, conceding the loss of 5 square kilometers just on May 12th, and added that the Ukrainians had taken tactical heights, giving them good visibility of Bakhmut.
This is all before the
The spokesperson of the eastern grouping of the Ukrainian army, Cherevati, claimed that the Ukrainian army had liberated 17.3 square kilometers in just 3 days. Despite losing ground on the flanks, Wagner continued advancing inside Bakhmut in this period. So far, the most important success of the local Ukrainian counter-offensive in Bakhmut has been securing vital roads into the town. Still, this success may be eventually negated if Wagner manages to occupy the rest of Bakhmut, unless the Ukrainians gain even more ground to the north and south of the settlement, putting the forward Wagner positions into a semi-encirclement. For now, despite the open panic of the Russian segment of Telegram and Prigozhin's statements, the scale of the Ukrainian attack does not indicate that this operation is the first stage of the much-expected Ukrainian counter-offensive, and indeed the presidential aide Podolyak has called it a prelude. To conclude the topic of Bakhmut for this video, we need to talk about a sensational Pentagon leak, which claims that in late January, Prigozhin offered Ukraine to give information about the positions of the Russian army, in exchange for the defenders leaving Bakhmut. Reportedly, Ukraine rejected this offer.
I never heard about that. The moment that come out, if he wasn't already a dead man, he's now definitely a dead man. And for what he does after, triple dead man. Triple dead man. He just kept on digging his own grave. I think he just needed a JCB
Prigozhin
digger.
will be in a lot of...
I see you. You haven't liked the video yet. Why not? Go on. Go like it. While you're at it, you know you want to subscribe. And if you want to go to our social medias, all the links you need are in the description box down below. And you might as well head over to our Patreon as well, where you can get extra bonus content if you're enjoying this. That link's in the description box down below. But we'll get straight back into the video. Love you guys.
Of trouble if there is any truth to this report.
Yeah.
Putin will surely investigate this claim. If he finds Prigozhin guilty of what is undoubtedly high treason, he will have to react with some kind of punishment for the leader of arguably his most capable unit. While Prigozhin and Putin's spokesman Peskov have already ridiculed the claim, in another one of his interviews, the Wagner boss openly mocked the grandfather. This might be considered a thinly veiled reference to Putin, often called a bunker grandpa by his critics in Russia. A day after his interview, a poll on the popularity of potential candidates for the 2024 presidential election in Russia was published. It claimed that Prigozhin is Russia's second most popular candidate, with 39%, trailing Putin by just 3 points.
I didn't know that either. I didn't realize he already had that much sway within the political polls.
The conflict between Prigozhin and the Russian elite was not the only bad news for Russia in the first half of May. On May 1st, Colonel General Mizintsev was dismissed from the post of Deputy Defense Minister on Logistics, an indirect acknowledgement of supply problems in the Russian army by its command. On May 3rd, we witnessed an unspecified UAV hitting the dome of the Kremlin Senate building. Russia immediately accused Ukraine, but Kyiv has so far rejected its role in this attack. The United States Secretary of State Blinken refused to condemn Kyiv for strikes on Russian territory, stating that Ukraine maintains its right to defend itself and liberate its territories in the manner they see fit, while former President of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, predictably called for the physical elimination of Zelensky. Some military commentators believe this was a false flag attack orchestrated by Putin to foster the Russian public's siege mentality and bolster his reputation as a fearless wartime leader who works under enemy fire. But many other commentators have argued that Kyiv was behind these attacks, aiming to demonstrate Ukraine's disrespect for any imaginary red lines imposed by Russia. Evidently, Ukraine does not fear escalation, and may believe that raising stakes when Russia is at its weakest makes sense, as they probably think that Russia has no escalatory tools remaining at its disposal but nukes. We still hear Russian officials and politicians mention nuclear weapons now and then, like the former chief of Roscosmos, Prigozhin, suggesting using tactical nukes to prevent the Ukrainian counteroffensive. But the probability of this happening remains highly unlikely. Hence, Ukraine may continue to plan bolder operations. For instance, another Pentagon leak reported by the Washington Post claims that in January 2023, Zelensky suggested occupying border cities of Russia to use them as a bargaining card in negotiations with Russia, along with destroying the Russian pipeline supplying Hungary with oil. Zelensky refuted this claim. "We are not attacking Russian territory. We have neither the time nor the strength to do this, and we do not have extra weapons to do so."
No, I don't believe they're going to. Do you believe
Russia conducted several drone and cruise missile
front?
attacks on Ukrainian cities in response to the Kremlin incident. On May 4th, Kyiv and Odessa were attacked by 24 drones, 18 of which were shot down. Russia also reportedly launched a Kinzhal hypersonic missile, which Ukraine shot down for the first time since the start of the war, thanks to the newly supplied Patriot system. A few days later, the Pentagon confirmed this. CNN later quoted an unnamed American official who claimed that Russia targeted the Patriot battery in Kyiv with this Kinzhal missile, but the Ukrainian air defense was ready and intercepted the Kinzhal by launching several air defense missiles at different angles. This is huge for Ukraine. Up until now, Ukraine had nothing to shoot Kinzhal missiles with, but apparently Patriots are capable of dealing with hypersonic missiles too. A big win for Ukraine and for the American military industry. On May 8th, Russia launched 16 missiles and 35 Shahed drones on Kyiv. The Ukrainian Air Defense Command has claimed that they shot down all 35 drones. On May 9th, Russia launched 25 missiles, with only 2 of them reaching their targets. On May 13th, several Russian drones hit an object in the Khmelnytsky Oblast, causing a major explosion, which Russian sources claim to be an ammunition depot. The last mass strike on Ukraine in this period was conducted on May 16th, with the Russians launching 6 Kinzhals, 9 Calibers, 3 ballistic missiles, and several drones on Kyiv. There is epic footage of the Ukrainian defense shooting down Russian missiles and drones in darkness. But apparently the Patriot system was damaged, but not destroyed, according to CNN, citing an anonymous source from the American government. The 9th of May Victory Parade, which could have raised Russian morale by showcasing the might of the Russian army, like it was done in the previous years, was not something to write home about either. The parade lasted only 45 minutes and included only one T-34 tank, while Putin's speech was a boring retread of old themes.
So even that was doled down.
Another painful setback for the Russian army took place on May 13th. On this day, at least 2 combat aircraft, an Su-34 and Su-35 and 2 Mi-8 helicopters crashed in the Bryansk Oblast. The cause of this series of incidents is not entirely clear. Several Russian military bloggers speculated that the aircraft and helicopters were shot down by Ukrainian saboteurs on Russian soil or by Ukrainian air defense. But the most popular version is that the Russian air defense destroyed the Russian aircraft with friendly fire due to its inability to differentiate between enemy targets and friendlies.
No.
This version was supported by Prigozhin too. Regardless of the cause, this was a...
Which cause do you think it is? Let me know in the comments box down below, because it seems crazy it was friendly fire.
Dark day for the Russian Air Force, and yet another example of negligence and incompetence of the Russian military. The Kremlin is bracing for the Ukrainian counter-offensive as we speak. According to the Russian opposition outlet Medusa, Russian propagandists have received new talking points from the Kremlin, which are not supposed to downplay the threat of the Ukrainian counter-offensive, and instead emphasize the NATO support to Kyiv. Several reports from the occupied portion of the Zaporizhia Oblast indicate that Russia has ordered a complete evacuation of 18 settlements and has stopped paying officials representing the Russian occupation administration in this region.
Okay.
At this point, Ukraine is still preparing for its counter-offensive. The Minister of Interior, Ihor Klemenko, stated on May 2nd that 8 assault brigades are entirely ready and a few more brigades may be created. Later, Czech President Pavel stated that Ukraine has prepared up to 9 mechanized brigades with up to 72,000 people, 900 armored personnel carriers, and 315 tanks.
Okay.
Then the Ukrainian Minister of Digital Transformation, Fedorov, noted that Ukraine has trained 10,000 drone operators and planned to create 60 drone regiments. Indeed, Ukraine has been actively using drones to attack Russian trenches and target the Russian rear. The Ukrainian army is getting drones from its Western allies and donations from Ukrainian people and businessmen, which has become a significant problem for Russia. For instance, on May 4th, Ukrainian drones attacked the Ilsky oil refinery. On May 7th, Crimea was the target of Ukrainian drones. We also continue seeing many videos of Ukrainian drones chasing down Russian infantrymen and attacking military assets. On May 9th, the Secretary of the Ukrainian Security Council, Danilov, stated that plans for the counter-offensive had not been approved yet. 2 days later, Zelensky reiterated Danilov's sentiments, declaring that they would have to wait to launch the counter-offensive a bit more, as they are still waiting for more Western support. We can go forward and succeed with what we have now, but we would lose many men. I think that is unacceptable. Therefore, we need to wait. We still need a bit more time.
He wants to save as many men as possible.
On the same day, Zelensky finally got the news he had been waiting for several months. Britain agreed to supply Storm Shadow long-range cruise missiles. The export version of Storm Shadow, which Ukraine is presumably getting, has a range of 250 kilometers. These long-range missiles are launched from aircraft, have low radar visibility, and employ powerful warheads. Back in the summer of 2022, Ukraine turned the tide of the war thanks to HIMARS, which has just 80-kilometer range.
I mean, we pledged them on the 9th of May, but when do they get them? Because that range there is huge.
Russia adapted to HIMARS by removing their bases, ammunition, oil depots, and other military assets deeper into the occupied territory. With long-range missiles like Storm Shadow, Russia does not have this option.
No,
we will likely
no
see the
option at
impact
all.
of Storm Shadows very soon. Ukraine has already used them on targets in and near the city of Luhansk, which has become a hub of the Russian military infrastructure in Ukraine. A few enemy bases were seemingly destroyed. This is just what the doctor ordered for Ukraine prior to its counter-offensive. Now they can target Russian military assets throughout the occupied territories and inflict significant harm on the supply of Russian troops on the front line. This will save countless Ukrainian lives. This leaves Western-made fighter jets as Ukraine's last remaining unfulfilled wish in terms of military aid from its allies. There have been some movements in connection with this, but Ukraine still appears far from getting F-16s or other Western fighters. In this period, the Swedish defense minister refuted claims that Sweden would give JAS Gripen 39 fighters to Ukraine.
Oh, I thought they were going to.
At the same time, the Polish government stated that Ukraine has already received 28 fighters from its allies, including 14 MiG-29s from Poland. During his official visit to France and Britain, Zelensky received guarantees from these allied countries to organize training of Ukrainian pilots on Western-made jets.
When's that
He claimed that Ukraine is creating the fighter jet coalition, without elaborating on whether there has been any progress regarding the supply of fighter jets in recent weeks. In general, Zelensky's trip to Germany, France and Britain can be considered a huge success for Ukraine. On May 14th, Germany announced a military support package worth 2.7 billion euros, which includes 20 Marder infantry fighting vehicles, 30 Leopard 1 tanks, 18 self-propelled howitzers, 4 Iris-T SLM air defense systems, and 200 recon UAVs.
That's just from Germany.
On May 15th, France pledged dozens of armoured vehicles and light tanks, including AMX-10RC, while Britain promised hundreds of long-range strike drones. Few more international visits and Ukraine can start attacking. Other notable cases of military aid are the Danish package, worth 250 million euros, which includes transport vehicles and air defense vehicles. The May 3rd Pentagon military aid package, worth $300 million, which includes HIMARS munitions, artillery shells, 155mm howitzers, and Hydra 70 rockets. And another package on May 9th, worth $1.2 billion, which includes additional air defense systems and munitions, 155mm artillery shells, and air defense equipment. The Czech promised to deliver 2 batteries of Kub anti-aircraft missile systems, and the May 12th decision of the Swiss Parliament to amend the War Material Act, which will potentially allow Switzerland to supply Ukraine with weapons.
Really?
It has also been confirmed that all Challenger 2 tanks pledged by Britain have been delivered to Ukraine. While 31 Abrams tanks were promised to arrive in autumn, they are already in Germany, where the Ukrainian fighters are training on them. Russia was hoping that Western support for Ukraine was going to dry up. Another mistake. The Ukrainian counteroffensive seems imminent.
I don't think it's going to dry up, but we're definitely seeing the pond shrink. We're definitely seeing the pond or the lake shrink into a pond at least.
At this point, the improvement of weather conditions, the arrival of most pledged Western supplies, and much-awaited long-range missiles are some of the things Ukraine has probably been waiting for before attacking. Russia seems vulnerable at this point, while Ukraine is in a good position to succeed on the battlefield. Now for the visually confirmed losses on both sides, provided by the Oryx blog. As of May 16th, for Russia, these are 1,965 tanks, 4,029 vehicles, 240 command posts and communication stations, 710 artillery systems and vehicles, 202 multiple rocket launchers, 82 aircraft, 87 helicopters, and 239 drones. For Ukraine, these are 500 tanks, 1,478 vehicles, 12 command posts and communication stations.
So the losses is good for the Ukraine, but the vehicles in the Ukrainian side is obviously bad for Ukraine. That's quite a few.
296 artillery systems and vehicles, 45 multiple rocket launchers, 66 aircraft, 29 helicopters, and 114 drones. We're working on more videos on the war in Ukraine, so make sure to subscribe and press the bell button. Please
make sure you're subscribed and you've pressed the bell icon to their videos. You know they make amazing content. If you're enjoying my reaction to this series and my little binge here, you know what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.